So in the last tutorial, I just made the paragraph styles, got rid of the swatches, did some organization thing like adding some guides and such. Be aware that there's some other things that you can do about, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Other things you can do about snapping to your guides and showing other grids and things, as well as locking the guides so that you can't change them. So do be aware of that. Now, I also rearranged my text here, so I put my titles together in its own little box, which I think is a really important thing to have good organization. Now, in this one, we're going to take a look at some really fun things. Now, these are the fun design tools: brushes, shapes, patterns. Might even find some other things to play with, but really depends on how fast I'm able to go. Now, I'm going to go back to this Brush Easy website again, because this is where I find all these things. This is a great website. It's not the only place, of course, to find brushes online and patterns and textures, but it is great. Now, brushes are very easy to apply in Photoshop, but you do want to be aware that brushes are bitmap graphics. Now, that's as opposed to shapes. Shapes are vector graphics that are applied in Photoshop. They may look the same on the surface, but they are very, very different. Now, patterns are kind of a fun thing that you can apply, and also the styles that are over here. So I'm kind of flip-flopping back and forth. Now, for all of these, if you find one that you want to use, what you have to do is click on this. So let me find out. I think that a dinosaur might be maybe not the most appropriate thing, but this is really nice, and that's a free floral brush. If you go and download this, you may have to wait, or you can go ahead and log in. But if you download it, then what you do is, after you've downloaded it, you have to open it up and you have to access the files inside. Now, this one has the Floral Brush, and what we're looking for are these files. This thing is called .abr, and that's an Adobe brush file. Now, I've downloaded all of these files already, so I've got a bunch of different ones. This one, which is called .pat, is a pattern. This is the brush file. This one is a Adobe styles file, and this one is my vector brush, or vector shape, which we'll play with here in a second. So the first thing that I'm going to play with is brushes. Brushes are really fun. If I go to the brush, and now what I need to do is open up my brush tools. So I need to go to brush. Then when you go over to the brush presets, you'll see that you have a whole list of brushes already there. And what's cool about these is you can go ahead and create a new layer, and you can use any of these brushes that you want and start drawing on your design. Now, what's cool about brushes is that it's a great way to add things like texture and other things. And of course, you can change your colors and do all sorts of things. And you can even change the size of your brush if you need it to be a little bit bigger. Now, this is not a high quality brush for doing for doing texture, that particular one, but they're pretty cool. Oh, I need to make sure I have, there you go. And a little bit bigger, and you'll see there's what that brush looks like. So you can really do some neat things with it, adding some texture. I don't want to have all that. I just want to delete it, and I keep on deleting the layer when I do that. So instead, I'm going to load a brush, and I'm going to load the brush from that one that I downloaded. And if I go there, it will be Floral Brushes, and if I look down at the bottom here, I should hopefully find this particular brush. And so let's see if that is it. Whoa, it's big. It's actually 2477 pixels. So I'm going to take that back a little bit. Hopefully it'll give me an idea of what the size of that would be. There we go. So there I can apply that brush however I want. Now that's really kind of cool what you can do, especially if you take that back and make a couple different versions of it like that, and then you can change your opacity and maybe change the color to something else, and even apply your different blending modes or something to it. So that's a great way to add some really interesting things to your design if you want. I love brushes, and I'm not going to explore them beyond that, but basically you have to go to the brush menu, and then you go ahead and load those brushes from outside. Now, I also love shapes. And so in order to load these, you have to go over to the left hand side and where it goes to the custom shape tool. And the custom shape tool comes up with the shapes over here on the top right, and I've actually already loaded them. But the way you load them is by going ahead, and if I reset these back to the originals, this is just the regular ones. I'm going to go ahead and load the shapes, and I'm loading them from the same folder where I downloaded some files already. And now you'll see here are those different files. Now I know that I want to use a Twitter one, so you click on it, and then you can click and drag and hold down the shift key so that you keep constrained. And the cool thing about this is that if you look carefully, it is a vector graphic, which means that it can be scaled however you want, and then you can fill it with whatever color that you want. And it can be used over and over and over. So here's where I'm going to put my little Twitter right here, and I may be able to add a little like Twitter icon here. That would be open happiness, if I can spell happiness. Now once again, this text is maybe a little bit different, so if I'm going to be doing something that is definitely different, I'm going to go ahead and make that small. If I'm doing that definitely different, then here's another opportunity for us to go ahead and make another paragraph setting, our new paragraph style. And this would be my social. So anytime that you have a new bit of text that you're bringing in and you want to be able to duplicate that later on, I would always create a paragraph style for any new text that you have. I think that's always important. Okay, so we've now got a couple other, we've got the brushes and we've got the custom shapes. And by the way, with the custom shapes, there's a lot more to it, obviously, that you can go ahead and play with. One of the things about them is that if you click with it, then you can create the custom shape at a certain size, or if you click and drag, you just draw it out to the size that you want, but always hold down the shift key. Oh, I remember one of the things I wanted to mention about this this shape is that this is a perfect opportunity for us to look into things like your library, because if you decide that if you have a membership to the Adobe Creative Cloud, then you can create libraries and you can actually add these types of elements to your libraries. Oops, I have to drag it from here, I suppose. I think I have to drag it from there and drag it up there. Then you can call this Twitter. And now anytime I go to any other document, so if I go over to this one, you'll see I now have that icon that I can bring into any document anywhere on any computer. And so I would definitely suggest that you learn more about libraries. It's a great way to share things like these shapes that you might reuse, or even brushes that you might reuse. Be aware that the shape comes in as a vector graphic that you then can scale and all sorts of stuff, which I think is really, really great, of course, the real power of them. Whereas the brushes are only going to be saved as bitmap graphics that are at whatever resolution you actually have them in your Photoshop document. Let's see, did I do anything else? Ooh, patterns, real quick. Another thing that you might do, but it's not going to be real often, is maybe fill an area with a pattern. So I'm going to select a small region here. Maybe I'll just take it all the way down to there. And I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and I'm going to use a pattern here. And then what we have to do is we have to go to the menu for it, and we have to load a pattern. So I'm going to load it from that external file that I was dealing with earlier. And there's a pattern, and I can now fill it with a polka dot if I want. So really fun to play with patterns as well. I hope that you explore things like brushes and shapes and patterns, because there's thousands and thousands of places that you can find them, and they really open up what you can do with design. I think it's a fabulous way to add variety and a lot of interesting things, because there's just so many resources out there. So definitely go out and play with them as much as possible. And let's get going on the big final stuff, which is organization and output.